another episode of Tap Outs and Touchdowns.
That's right, everybody. It's another football episode of Tap Outs and Touchdowns on this Football Wednesday, because I don't think anybody calls it Football Wednesday except for us here at Tap Outs and Touchdowns. It's your guy, Bully Rye, alongside my buddy Banker Bill. Bill, what's going on, bud?
Football Wednesday, brother. I agree. That's probably not. There's no such thing as Football Wednesday because there's no football ever on Wednesday.
There's not.
Game. But yeah, we'll call it Football Wednesday. I like it. It's our Football Wednesday.
Our Football Wednesday, because I mean, you got to think like high school football. I think B team plays Wednesdays, and then like JV plays Thursdays since it's Friday Night Lights and the varsity plays on Fridays. That's the only thing. That's the only thing I can think of as to why anybody would call it a Football Wednesday. We started a couple minutes early, and nobody's in here yet. But I also did not do a good job of promoting the show this week, so we may not get any viewers this week. Bill,
way to go!
It's entirely my fault. We are live on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So if you do decide to join us and watch the show with us tonight, please feel free to join the conversation because we have a lot to get to. A lot took place over the weekend in football, which brings us to Homer's Corner, which is my favorite part of the show. And Bill, I got a special little sound bite. Hopefully it plays right. I'm kind of curious, but let's see if this works. Yes, folks, Carolina Panthers fans, rejoice! Rejoice, Carolina Panthers fans! You are no longer at risk.
Is this song copyright?
I have no idea. I don't care if it is. I think it's public domain. A wrestler used to come out to that theme song. Panthers fans, rejoice as your bid for 0-17 falls short as the Carolina Panthers get their first win of the season. Sorry to our friend Eric over the Las Vegas Raiders. I believe that final score was 36-22. Andy Dalton becomes the first quarterback this season to throw for 300 yards and pass for 3 touchdowns in a single game. I just want to go on record because I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I thought you'd get a kick out of the praising music. But I called for week 8 of 2023 for the Carolina Panthers to bench Bryce Young before they ruined him. And unfortunately, I think they waited a little too late as they bench him in week 3. Hey, Mom's here. Mama Frick's in the house.
There you go.
So at least one person's here with us. Congratulations to the Carolina Panthers for getting your first win of the season. And with that win, only becoming 1 game behind the leaders in the NFC South. The NFC South is wide open as everybody in that division is 2-1 or 1-2. And I said preseason that I thought that everybody in the division would finish 8-9. So Bill, that's all my Homer's Corner. I'm gonna let you take it over now. Bill, what is your Homer's Corner about tonight?
I love that you let off with a red rifle. Love it. Honestly, my Homer's Corner is related, I think. But mine is the Miami Dolphins quarterback situation. I talked about Tua Tagovailoa last week in my Homer's Corner. And now we rolled out Skylar Thompson this week as our backup. And that was a horrible disaster there in Seattle. The only field goal we put on the board was a drive that started on Seattle's 5-yard line. So they're not sure what they're going to do this week with quarterback. I guess Skylar Thompson got beat up bad enough in that game, took enough hits, he got sacked 5 times that he probably won't play this week. So it's either going to be Tim Boyle or the recently signed off of where was he? He was on somebody's is it Baltimore's? No, it wasn't Baltimore's. He was on somebody's practice squad. I don't remember which practice squad. Was it Baltimore? Maybe it was Baltimore.
I think it was. Yeah.
But he's on their practice squad, and he's now on the Miami Dolphins roster. So one of those two are going to start. So you give Tyler Huntley one or two, actually about 1.5 weeks to learn the offense, and he might be running out as the starter this week. Ryan, I wanted to ask you this question in my Homer's Corner. That's really all I want to get to.
Let's hear it.
Do you feel like the Miami Dolphins general manager should be held accountable, and possibly even their head coach, Mike McDaniel, and their general manager is Chris Greer. By the way, Chris Greer has been in this organization since 2000. I don't know if you know the last time we won a playoff game. Yeah, it was 2000.
It really that long
so
ago?
He's been here for the entire garbage run, started out as a pro scout, and has eventually made his way up to general manager. And he basically is accustomed to losing. Mediocrity. He's like the poster boy for mediocrity, trying to dig him out of that. He's trying to get them a postseason win, clearly closer last year than ever in those last, 23 years. But anyway, what I want to ask you, Ryan, is do you feel like Skylar Thompson, now that we've seen him play one game, that these guys should be held accountable for what actually is going on in Miami, that they did not prepare for a contingency plan for a quarterback that has shown over the course of his young career that he gets injured quite a bit, and Skylar Thompson is your backup? Is that an issue, or do you feel like these guys should be answering for what they've basically given the Dolphins fans in the NFL at this point, and having such a terrible, terrible quarterback situation with Tua out?
Before I answer that question, Austin Thompson in the chat. What's up, bud? Hope you stick around for the show tonight. It'll be fun. To answer your question, I don't see why not, Bill. I mean, the Panthers signed Andy Dalton before drafting Bryce Young.
Mm-hmm.
New Orleans Saints drafted Derek Carr. Signed Derek Carr before drafting a guy like Spencer Rattler. I mean, even when Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance were on the roster, the San Francisco 49ers drafted Brock Purdy, right? I mean, it's the story as old as time. Always have a plan B. And maybe it is time for somebody to take the blame in Miami, because they have gone all in on their starting lineup. And to be quite frank with you, I think the San Francisco 49ers are in the same boat. I mean, look what the 49ers have become now that Christian McCaffrey's been put on the IR. George Kittle didn't play last week. Deebo Samuel didn't play. Brandon Ayuk is having a terrible start of the season since he got paid. Juwan Jennings finally, stepped up to be the wide receiver a lot of people thought he could be. So, yeah, I think you put teams like the Niners and the Dolphins in the same boat, that you can't rely on one guy to run the offense or one guy to hold up the defense. It's unfortunate because they are so bad behind Tua Tagovailoa. Listen, hear me out. I still don't think it's a bad idea to offer up a 4th-round pick for Bryce Young. I don't think that. I can't
do that. Okay, we're not going to even get into that. That would be another day.
Career in Carolina is over. And, I mean, there's plenty of guys out there that they could probably go trade for that would at least keep Miami above water, because we're going to get to them in a second. As far as we've got a new segment on the show called Patience or Panic. We did this years ago, and it was fantasy football related, but we're going to go over some teams that are 0-2, 1-3, 1-2, maybe even within running record, and should they be panicking on them. So we're going to get into more of that with the Dolphins. But, yeah, I mean, simple answer to your question, yes. Somebody's got to answer for it, because if the Dolphins go into this season at least favored to make the playoffs, expecting to put up 60 points a game with all that talent and all that speed on that offense, I mean, you got to think Raheem Mostert's out right now. Devin Achane has been banged up already this year. And now they don't have a quarterback to get the ball to Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill. And for that matter, look at what Mike Gesicki's doing in Cincinnati.
I know.
Why did Miami ever let him go? So, yeah, I think somebody's got some questions to answer.
My issue is that you've got so many situations in the history of the NFL that backup quarterbacks have come in and saved a season. Jeff Hostetler, Frank Reich, Don Strock, Chad Henne won a playoff game for Kansas City when Pat Mahomes was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just so many situations where you had a team that was a good team that had a good backup quarterback, or at least a competent backup quarterback, to make sure in the contingency situation that if something happened to the starter, you can win a game. And Miami didn't even look like a pro team on Sunday. It was that bad. I mean, I think Thompson threw for 107 yards. And I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure, Ryan, as out of shape as we are, there is a possibility we could go positive in the NFL with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle as our wide receivers. And this guy looked like he had never played football before.
I mean,
I can't understand
Thompson,
it. I can't understand how you're not looking at your personnel choices this week and the people who make your personnel choices this week if that's what you rolled out on Sunday.
Just awful. Austin Thompson said it's on the screen now. If you can't score with the Dolphins' weapons, then you suck.
I agree.
And I don't disagree with that. Yeah.
Anyway, that's my Homer's Corner. Thank you, Ryan. I wanted to pose the question.
It's an unfortunate situation because the Dolphins were my preseason pick to win the AFC, and sitting at 1-2, it does not bode well for the Miami Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa on IR with more concussion issues. Let's go over to college football because I want to say there wasn't much to get from last weekend, but I mean there kind of was. Did you see any surprises in college football week 4? I mean, you saw a couple of overtime games. I mean, Illinois, Nebraska went to overtime.
I think that's the one that I think Illinois, we have to see what this Illinois team's about. They're undefeated right now. They beat Nebraska on their home field. Nebraska's looked pretty decent with Dylan Raiola as their quarterback, right? And they beat them 31-24 in overtime. Got to see what Illinois is about right now. We're not sure how good this team can be, so we'll have to watch them going down the stretch.
If you look at podcast pick ems from last week, both of us had Michigan to at least cover against Southern Cal. Michigan gets a big, much-needed win at home over Big Ten foe Southern Cal. That's weird to say.
That feels weird, doesn't it?
I think there's a big story coming out of the Auburn-Arkansas game as Arkansas beats Auburn 24-14. Hugh Freeze calls out his team after the game saying that we need to find runners who can hold on to the ball. We need to find a quarterback who can throw the ball to our own guys. And I wish I could remember his name. He had a former quarterback from Ole Miss come out on social media and basically rip Hugh Freeze a new one over these comments. Any thoughts on that? Or, I mean, is it fair or foul as far as a head coach? I think he's in his first year at Auburn, calling out his players after a 10-point loss to a pretty good Arkansas team. I
mean, obviously out of frustration. I don't like that you call out your players publicly like that. They know what they do wrong, and it's Captain Obvious at this point. You're preaching to the choir. They know what she did. You know, we threw interceptions. Well, we don't want to throw interceptions. Well, we know this, right? They know that. So I don't love it. I prefer a coach saying something like, "We need to clean up the offense. We need to execute better," things like that, but not, literally say we can't throw the other team. Like, come on.
Yeah. Elsewhere in college football, man, the Utah-Oklahoma State game was great. Shout out to Vanderbilt, despite the fact that Vanderbilt should have won that game, loses to number 7 Missouri in 2 overtimes. Vanderbilt took everything. I don't know if that's a slight on Missouri, that Missouri's not as good as we thought they are, but
we don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy. How about Tennessee getting a big win on the road in their first SEC game as an SEC member? Oklahoma falls at home to the University of Tennessee. This game, 25-15. The game was much, much worse than the final score tells. Your Florida Gators get a big win over Mississippi State. It's good. I think I texted you during that game, and I said it's a good thing that y'all had Mississippi State on your schedule.
You did say that
this season. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to dwell on the fact that South Carolina beat Akron with a backup quarterback. Our running back gets hurt in the first 5 minutes of the game. So now, we play that game without our top quarterback, our top running back, and Robbie Ashford, Auburn transfer, has himself a day. LSU struggles with UCLA, but pulls away late in that game. Yeah, I mean, there's some fun stuff to watch in college football, but I think the biggest surprise, and some people picked him on like College Game Day to outright win. The biggest surprise was James Madison.
Yeah.
Going to Chapel Hill and dropping 70.
Yeah.
On an ACC team. Real quick, hold on. Sean McElveen, Vanderbilt is going to shock someone. Just hopefully not South Carolina. That's what I like to hear. I mean, I think that poses a question because after the game, Mac Brown goes to his team in the locker room and all but suggests that he's going to resign a la Steve Spurrier in his last year at South Carolina. I guess he chose not to do it. But that poses the question, Bill. of all these teams that we're seeing, I mean, North Carolina loses to James Madison. I know they lost their starting quarterback in the week 1 of the season, but what coaches do you see realistically on the hot seat this far into the college football season?
Well, I mean, my favorite team has a coach I think that's on the hot seat right now. Billy Napier, that seat is boiling right now. They wanted him fired after the Texas A&M game. He survives another week, gets a win. The reality is with that, I've heard he hasn't lost the locker room yet. So if he loses the locker room and the players, I mean, we know the mascot already tried to fight him, but if the players turn on him, it sounds like Billy Napier might be shown the door. Other than that, I don't like to make predictions, I hate that kind of thing. There's a lot of politics that go into coaching college football teams and whether or not you are improving or not improving and things like that. And the athletic director and whatnot is looking to do something with the program. And you got to be careful who you let go. And, like Napier's a perfect example of that, but, and we've talked about it on the show, but I don't really like to make predictions on that kind of thing. And to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of paying attention to coaches anyway. Like, I don't really care. I like to see the good ones where you can see like Josh Heupel doing really well at Tennessee. Like that guy's done and done well at every school he's gone to, right? And made each team, like when he was at UCF looked legitimate. So you knew he was going to be a decent coach, and now he's at Tennessee. And I was looking at Tennessee's schedule, Ryan. They have a shot to win the national championship this year.
They don't have they drew one of the easiest schedules
Georgia.
in the SEC.
Alabama and Georgia. That's what's going to stand in their way. Alabama, they have them at home, but they have to travel on the road to Georgia. And Georgia, we know, has looked beatable. So anyway, you can talk about any coach that you're looking that might get fired. I don't know. Shane Beamer? If South Carolina goes on a run of losses, come on.
Beamer's fine. You talked about Florida. Let's talk about Florida State and Mike Norvell. I mean, there was a quote and I don't know if it was real or not, a meme from Nick Saban where they were talking about Florida State on College Game Day, and he made a comment, something along the lines of, well, remember all them players he had last year? They were in the portal for a reason. And I'm really not sure, like, I think Norvell gets a win over Cal and says some sideways stuff. Like, I don't know. I don't think Norvell, if Norvell goes on a losing streak, and I think they get Florida State. Florida State gets Clemson next weekend, and they do. I believe it's a 7 or 7:30 kickoff in Tallahassee. But I'll tell you this right now: if Clemson comes into Tallahassee and blows out Florida State, I don't know if Mike Norvell survives the night. I think he's gone the next day.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
I couldn't tell you who they play this week as I'm trying to go through the schedule. But yeah, Clemson, listen, Florida State has 3 big rivals, right? Miami, Florida, and Clemson, if we're going to call them, 3 big rivals. I think we can agree they're not going to beat Clemson or Florida or Miami at this point.
No.
And I think depending on how bad those losses are, kind of shows you what the state of Florida State football is. I mean, this was a team last season that was upset they didn't make the national championship game. And not only did basically the entire team opt out of playing in the bowl game, most of the team left. So to that point, like all the players are in the portal for a reason. Like,
it's a culture thing.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
If you talk about losing the locker room, I think Mike Norvell's lost that locker room.
Georgia didn't sit their players out and take their ball and go home when they were told they couldn't play in the college football playoff.
And they blew up the third stringers for Florida State. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about this? This is a story that wasn't on the docket for today. UNLV starting quarterback.
Oh, I wanted to talk about that.
Let's do it. I'm trying to think of let's call that a surprise. The 3-0 UNLV. I don't even know their mascot. They're undefeated.
Running Rebels. It's the Running Rebels.
The UNLV Running Rebels, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, are 3-0. And their quarterback came out last night or this morning and said, sorry, I was offered $100,000 to transfer here from St. Mary's, and I never got that money. So I'm done. Bill, what's your thoughts on this situation?
It's awful. It's awful. I mean, this is the dark side of NIL, right? I mean, we all want the players. We know that there's rich men making a lot of money off of the NCAA, and we want the players to get some compensation for that. And I think we're all good with it. But the fact that we just like opened the doors for them to get whatever they wanted and get promised everything that they wanted. I mean, we had this with Florida with Jaden Rashada when he was a 4-star quarterback going to Florida. He was promised something, didn't get what he wanted. Billy Napier was involved, and he transferred to Arizona State. You know where he is now? He's the backup quarterback at Georgia. He's doing nothing, but he didn't get what he wanted. He got $100,000 to go to Arizona State. Anyway, the point is NIL is a disaster right now. You and I have talked about it before, and this is the dark side of it. He was promised money, didn't get it, and here he is. They're 3-0. They're having a good season. Clearly, he's playing pretty well, and he's going to walk out on all those teammates and say, sorry, guys, not going to continue to lead you as your quarterback. I don't care that much about you. I care more about the money, and he's going to sit down. That's terrible. It's awful. Awful situation.
Real quick shout out to Dylan over on Instagram, old buddy from college, watching the show with us tonight. Makes me happy.
Which we're all shocked you had. Don't worry.
Friends in college? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I hate you. So no, like
let's see, it's comments like that, Ryan. That's where it's
no, like I see both sides. Like if you promise something, you don't get it. You're putting your body on the line. Like you should say, hey, I'm not playing another snap till I get my money. But this is college football. If he's going to hold out on his team in college, if he ever wanted to play in the NFL, I think that ship has sailed now. If he's going to hold up his college team, where each game in the regular season means that much more,
and
he's going to hold out on them. If I'm an NFL general manager, I want nothing to do with this guy, especially with the number of holdouts that you have every single year. Now you've got a college quarterback that's leaving over $100K. And not for nothing, they're in Vegas, right? I'm sure they could find $100,000 somewhere. So why don't they just do it?
Is there? See, I don't really know how NIL even really, I guess, when it comes to the nuts and bolts of it, how it actually works. Is there no contract signed saying, hey, we're going to give you money? Or is it just a handshake saying, hey, we're going to give you $100,000 if you come play for us?
Most people get something in writing that if you come to play here, we're going to hook you up with our NIL collective and they're going to get you somewhere. You're going to get paid. But this guy got a verbal agreement. And that was all that he had.
Maybe this guy shouldn't be in college. I don't know. I'm just trying to, if you get
he doesn't.
Pretty sure that when I was in high school, if somebody told me like, hey, here's $100,000, come do this. Like I would be like, can we get that in writing? Maybe. Doesn't sound very guaranteed to me.
He doesn't listen. Some college kids are not the smartest. Dylan can attest. We didn't make the best decisions when we were in college, but I digress. All right, let's talk one last thing about college football. Any upsets you might be expecting this week? And we have a big slate of games ranked on ranked teams. You got number 20 Oklahoma State at number 23 Kansas State. The biggest game of the weekend, obviously, Georgia, Alabama.
That's the biggest game of the season so far.
Yep. I mean, you've got, let's see, Arkansas at a ranked Texas A&M. I just saw another one that came across, Louisville at Notre Dame. That's 15-16. So some decent Illinois, Penn State. You talked about we need to see what we're going to see out of Illinois. They get a chance to go on the road and prove that this is not a fluke and they're here to stay.
Right.
So UCLA is hosting Oregon. Oregon is
Ohio
struggled.
State at Michigan State. Michigan State's sitting 3-1 right now. That could be a close game.
Any of these teams you expect to lose that are particularly favored right now?
What would be? Wow. Here's a low one in the 25. Washington State at Boise State. Washington State's undefeated, and they've got a chip on their shoulder. They are not ranked while Boise State is at 2-1. So
Boise State's a 7.5 point favorite in this game too.
Yeah, so that could be interesting. Other than that, I don't love a lot of. I mean, did you see the Oregon UCLA line? That's insane. 25.5.
25.5. UCLA covers that. I'm just going to say it.
UCLA covers that? You really think so?
100%.
Wow. Ohio State over Michigan State by 24. That's a cover. I'm going to cover that.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Other than that, I don't think we have a ton of upset watches this week. Not from the big teams. I think you're going to watch the really marquee matchup, which is obviously the Georgia Alabama game. Everybody's going to be watching that one. You've got a decent game in the Big 12, although Utah made it a lot less interesting, and Kansas State flubbing up against BYU made it a lot interesting last week as well. Yeah. But Oklahoma State, Kansas State play each other this week. That's going to be a little bit. That's going to be fun. That one's at noon on ESPN, but. I don't know, man. You know how we go through the season and you don't get those marquee matchups every week. At least we have one big one this week. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. South Carolina doesn't play this weekend. I'm excited.
Well, they barely played last week when playing Akron. That was.
We just dropped 50 points, so suck it. Let's see. Derek Volley Polly in the chat. Boy, howdy, the lighting makes y'all's jerseys look similar. No, this is, Volley Polly, this is my Barry Sanders jersey you gave me a hard time about.
I know
not wearing.
And this is Mike Wallace. Does anybody remember Mike Wallace when he played for the Dolphins? I bought the jersey.
Mike Wallace.
What a mistake.
I feel like that's the second former Viking wide receiver y'all got.
Viking. He was a Viking.
Not Viking, Steeler.
Yes,
Steelers.
Who's the first?
Who's that? No, he was the first. Who did y'all get? Oh no, he never played for the Steelers. Never mind. I thought y'all had another guy. That just might be who I'm thinking about.
Okay.
Ignore me. Brain farts happen. All right, let's talk about the NFL. We'll get into more college football at Podcast Pick, and let's get into the NFL here. I mentioned in my Homer's Corner, you talk about surprises from week 3. The Carolina Panthers getting a win on the road in Vegas behind Andy Dalton. The Broncos knocking off the red-hot Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There are so many games on the slate. The Eagles over the Saints that looked unbeatable through 2 weeks. What was your biggest surprise of the weekend?
I think one of my favorite, it's wild. The Vikings. What the heck are the Vikings doing? Can anybody figure that one out at all? That one's crazy.
You have a phrase that you like to say, Ryan, you're wrong again.
Yeah.
I had the Vikings.
Oh, I didn't have many better. Don't worry.
At 2-15, they have already beaten my win projection for the Vikings.
Probably a little better than that, but I don't know what we thought. Like, did we really think J.J. McCarthy was going to be the savior of this team? And when he went down, it was like junk. We didn't think they were going to be good with J.J. McCarthy, right? But Sam Darnold is playing horrible right now.
That's what I'm saying. We think Sam Darnold's going to take this team over. They're going to be terrible. They got Aaron Jones on an offense. Justin Jefferson balled out last week. Jordan Addison may be back this week.
But we saw Sam Darnold do this one time. We saw Sam Darnold do this when he started with Carolina. I think he went 3-1 in his first 4 games with Carolina.
4-0. He went
4-0, and then the wheels fell off, and he forgot how to play quarterback for like 2 seasons. So I still can't feel comfortable, but I will say that they look really good. And we thought Houston, at least all the experts, thought Houston was one of the teams to beat in the AFC, and they absolutely dismantled them up in Minnesota. So that's my favorite surprise of the week. The other one that surprised me, you mentioned the Broncos and the Panthers, but the other one that surprised me was the Steelers. What are the Steelers doing? They have no business winning. I think I had them winning like 4 games.
7 is what I had them at. 7.
Just no business in these teams. Justin Fields looks good. Actually, you know what? We kind of knew. I felt like I knew. I didn't think Justin Fields was that bad of a quarterback. And when Russell Wilson went down, I said they're going to be I didn't say it on here. I don't think we talked much about Steelers, but I thought they were going to be just fine. Justin Fields is the exact same guy when Russell Wilson's decent. And Justin Fields is doing that right now, playing really well. And I don't know, how good are they? That's what we need to find out. We'll have to look at their schedule and see when they run into somebody that might be able to beat them. I thought the Chargers were going to give them a run, and it was 20-10. And then, holy crap, the Buffalo Bills look freaking terrifying right now. Josh Allen did you watch any of that game?
Yeah, dude, I think it's a combination of him and the Jags being that bad. The Jags are terrible.
Okay, so the Jags are terrible, but Josh Allen was flinging the ball around the yard so accurately that it pissed me off because I don't like the guy, and he has not been a good passer, but that dude looked like Joe Montana on Monday night. He was flinging it. The first half, I have him on my fantasy team. I had no shot to win this week. I was down by like 70 points. No, I was like down by like 50 points going in. More than that, I think, going into the Monday night games. Josh Allen put up 35 points in the first half. I lost by 0.5.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Let's start off with the Steelers. I actually had a conversation. Shout out to JD, a good buddy of mine. We had a conversation this week. Like, I think Mike Tomlin just knows how to coach.
Oh, you think?
Like, every single year, we have the same conversation. The Steelers are going to fall off. The Steelers are going to fall off. So we started talking about, like, the fact that, like, what team has a roster built to win the Super Bowl right now that Tomlin could win the Super Bowl with? And we started thinking about years prior. Like, we thought that the year with the Cowboys still had Zeke and a young CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. We thought that Mike Tomlin coached that team, the Cowboys win the Super Bowl. We were talking about like I made the suggestion that if Mike Tomlin had been coaching the New England Patriots the year they went 17-0, that they would have won the Super Bowl that year. Like, I think at the end of the day, Mike Tomlin has to be a first ballot Hall of Famer because he has been the coach that has been able to make the most out of the bare minimum every single year. He had Mitch Trubisky at quarterback.
That's what I was thinking. It's exactly what I was thinking.
Winning record. Jeez, shout out to Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. And they may fall off a cliff too, but right now I am genuinely impressed, as I am with the Vikings. But let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, there was somebody made a comment on the radio a few days ago that people thought that Patrick Mahomes became a better quarterback when Tyreek Hill left because he had to learn to spread the ball around. And so they suggested, now that Stephon Diggs, the diva himself, is gone, that Josh Allen has to look around a little more. And that's why he was able to do what he was able to do on Monday Night Football and dismantle the Jags. I mean, talk about coaches on the hot seat.
Oh,
Doug Peterson in Jacksonville, man. Like, that's another question that JD and I talked about. Like, what quarterbacks that are starting on rosters right now will not be starters in 3 years? And we both agreed we don't think Trevor Lawrence makes it in Jacksonville.
I never thought he was good.
He was a product
and he's proving it.
He was a product of the Clemson system that
at that time
beat up on
Alabama.
And he played crap teams until he got to Alabama. That was it.
But yeah, Alabama, we've watched Alabama quarterbacks fail year after year. The only one that's even close to being successful is Tua Tagovailoa. The rest of them are terrible, right? Let's just fall out of the NFL. Trevor Lawrence had a great support system around him. He had all these NFL players, and this is what you get. You thought it was the quarterback, it wasn't, and here he is.
Before we get into the contenders and pretenders here, the Washington Commanders deserve a shout out because Jaden Daniels, You said it. I think I agree with it. Jaden Daniels is the real deal. The first quarterback in NFL history to throw more touchdowns in a game than incompletions. Dude absolutely balled out over the Bengals on Monday Night Football, the second game of the doubleheader. Shout out to the Commanders. I mean, I think the Commanders sit at 1-2. No, they're 2-1. They're in the lead in the NFC North. But I think they're right, or the NFC East rather, right above the Philadelphia Eagles. Man, I think you said they might be one of the surprise teams this year, and he made some throws in that game that were not rookie throws.
He can throw. That's the thing about him is he's super athletic. He can run and he can throw the ball. And the other part, and I always say this about quarterbacks, when I watch quarterbacks play, at least in college, and I'm not going to call myself. I don't know how to pick quarterbacks, but I've picked the last two pretty good ones. He's a baller. He always raised the LSU team. When he played for LSU, he raised that team. I think he played for Arizona State before that. He always raised that team. And when he left LSU, the team is falling off. It's not as good as it was. He always made that team feel like it was better. He was the weapon. He was the one that made that team feel dangerous. And that's why I thought Jaden Daniels, because he could do it all, run and pass. I thought he was going to be legit. And so far, I mean, it's a really small sample size, but holy crap, man, he looked really good against what looks like a really bad Bengals defense, man. They don't play defense very well.
Yeah, we're going to talk about them here in a second, too, when it comes to Pacers or Panic. Volley probably wants to know if we think there's anybody on upset alert in the NFL this week. If we're looking at, like, just point spreads, the Ravens are projected to beat the Bills. They're 2.5-point favorite at home. But I would consider the Ravens over the Bills an upset, regardless of point spread. Bill, anybody stand out in this coming week in the NFL as far as
I think
upsets?
The Saints are in danger of losing their second game in a row after we thought they were the best team in the NFL after week two. Their
center went out. Their starting center had to have surgery, so that's gonna affect their offense. I'm with you.
Yep. Let me see. I'm rolling down the.
And the Falcons are favored right now at home, 2.5 points. So even that from a
I think that's probably my biggest upset of the week. Chargers, I don't think can beat the Chiefs, and the Ravens. Wow, if the Bills are what we think they might be, the Ravens could fall to 1-3. I think we had them at 0-3. I thought they were going to lose this week, and they didn't. But that could be wild.
I had Baltimore at 3-1 after week 4. So. Shows how much I know. That's why I don't get paid to do this.
We were good last year. This year, I always say that there are times when the NFL gets turned on its ear And that's what this season feels like so far. There are a couple teams we thought would be good. Actually, not even. We didn't think the Bills were going to be who they are right now, and here they are.
Well, let's talk about it. Contenders or pretenders. We talked about Minnesota Vikings being 3-0. Realistically speaking, because they play in a division with the Packers that looks good with Jordan Love there. Won a game last week with Malik Willis. The Bears look bad. The Lions are struggling. Do you think the Minnesota Vikings have a legitimate chance not only to win the division, but to make a run in the playoffs?
No.
All right, that's
no,
fair.
I think they're pretenders. I don't know. It's Sam Darnold until you show me half a season where you can play like this and you start to beat some teams that aren't terrible. We didn't think Houston was going to be terrible, but that's a game. Sometimes there are games you go, what the heck happened? And the good team didn't play as well as you think. So no, I don't think they can. I still think Detroit's the class of that division. And the Packers are scary. The Packers are scary when Love plays because Willis is winning.
Yeah, touche. Let's quick hit some of these. The Washington Commanders 2-1. I mentioned they're ahead. They're number one in the NFC East, ahead of the Eagles and the Cowboys. The Cowboys have one win on the season. They lost their second consecutive game. Are the Commanders pretenders or contenders?
I say pretenders on this one too, because I think that whole division is going to beat the crap out of itself. I think the Giants can surprise people. It looked like Daniel Jones actually figured out how to throw the football this week. I don't think he's not consistent enough to keep doing that, but maybe Malik Neighbors. I think he targeted him 37 times in that game. He's just throwing it at Malik Neighbors all day long.
I was going to say Daniel Jones figured out how to pass the ball because he found a guy that he has on his roster named Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, it's wild, right? How much he's actually throwing to him. That division is going to be just really tough. I just feel like Washington, it's going to be really tough to come out of that division unscathed. They have the Eagles look okay. Jalen Hurts, shaky. What the heck's going on with that guy? And their
receivers are all banged up. They're going to be without AJ Brown and Devontae Smith this weekend. The Eagles receiving corps banged up.
Yeah, and do I think they could stay out front for a bit? I think the attrition of the season is going to really wear on that team. I don't know. I don't know that roster that well. I love Terry McLaurin. I wish I would love him every year. But I don't know if I feel them making it all the way to the end. I feel like the Eagles are probably the team to beat still in that division. I thought it would have been the Cowboys, but they're a disaster right now. I can't figure out what the heck they're doing.
They're the Cowboys. That's what they're doing.
No, but they usually play well in the regular season. Dak Prescott was the second best quarterback in the NFL last year, QBR, behind Brock Purdy, and he's terrible right now. So,
all right, let's quick hit the NFC South. Both the Saints and the Bucs are 2-1. Both teams lost this week after looking impressive. You've got the Falcons and, believe it or not, the Panthers right behind them at 1-2. Is this still anybody's division, or are the Saints and the Bucs the class of the division?
Nah, I think it's anybody's division. I still like the Falcons. I think they're going to figure it out. They played the Chiefs this week.
You know who looked? This is I hate to say this. You know who looked good last week? Kyle Pitts.
Do I have to say who?
I was hoping you were going to guess. Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts looked really good last week,
which I like because he's on my fantasy team.
Yeah, he looked like the tight end that Atlanta drafted him to be. Let's move out west. Of the NFC West teams, you would think the LA Rams, who were a playoff team last year, will be the class of the West. You would think the San Francisco 49ers were the class of the NFC West, but I've said it plenty of times. If their entire offense is injury prone, and if they all go down at the same time, they are going to look like what they do now. And those teams have slipped up and allowed the Seattle Seahawks to take a first place spot in that division at 3-0. The Seattle Seahawks, Bill, contenders or pretenders?
Honestly, I think Seattle. Wow, you're asking me a tough question because I had season tickets to the Seahawks for 6 years.
For the record, I had them at 3-0 this part of the season.
Did you really?
Joking.
That's incredible. I thought the Dolphins would have beat him if Tua. The Dolphins win that game if Tua is healthy, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't feel it. I think they're pretenders. The 49ers are going to get healthy at some point, and the Rams are Jekyll and Hyde. I don't know which team we're going to get every week, and they're banged up. So right now, the Seattle's going to run because they're not hurt, and the rest of the division is. But I think they'll start the rest of the division will start to catch up.
Let's skip over the Jets and Steelers because we talked about them a little bit. Houston Texans lose their first game of the year. Everybody, we talked about preseason. We didn't think they were going to be that good. At least I didn't, considering the all the recognition they got in the offseason. They were a top 10 team in the NFL. The Houston Texans, after losing their first game, contenders or pretenders?
Contenders. I still think they're good. Didn't have a good week. Really bad week against Minnesota. That was bad.
And I'm going to answer it for us with the LA Chargers. The Chargers dropped a game last week. Listen, I think Jim Harbaugh would sell one of his players' kidney if it meant giving them a better chance to win. Justin Herbert had no business being on the field with a high ankle sprain, and he re-injured it. It may have aggravated it, and they're still trying to practice him. I think the Chargers are pretenders for the fact that I don't think Justin Herbert's going to be healthy the entire season, and it's the pretenders. Listen. We have some comments over on Instagram. Dylan actually comes back to does anybody make great decisions when they're 18? Talking about Carolina beating LSU. He also wants to know, and I think we know the answer to this, should he have taken Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams in a dynasty fantasy league? I believe yes. I think you've already answered your own question.
Yeah. If you did that, you weren't listening to us. Like for weeks, we were saying Jaden Daniels was the better quarterback.
In fairness, this might be the first time Dylan's ever watched the show because a lot of people don't catch because we didn't go live on Instagram until X made us pay to do it. So
as a duo, Ryan and I are since we've been doing the show, we are absolute quarterback gurus. Everything we have said about quarterbacks drafted in the first round has come to pass. Yeah, everything. Yeah.
So, all right, there's a new segment on the show. We're going to zip through it because we still got to get fantasy football buys and sells, fact and crap, and then we got to get to podcast pick 'em here. There's a segment I like to call Patience or Panic. We look at some of the worst teams in the league and think and ask ourselves, is it time for them to panic or should we continue to be patient with them? Let's start off with the 0-3 Cincinnati Bengals. Bill, I'm going to give you my impression, my thoughts. I think it's time that the Bengals blow up the entire thing. They've got too much talent on that team to be 0-3 and to every single year say, we start off slow, but we'll be fine. I don't think they're fine this year. I think the offense finally came alive against Washington. I don't think Washington's defense is all that great. But they've got losses now to the Washington Commanders and the New England Patriots. That's not a great resume to build some momentum off of. I think it's time to blow up the Bengals. Bill, is it time to pay for patience or panic with the Cincinnati Bengals?
Haven't we seen this before? Haven't we seen the Bengals start slow, maybe with a Joe Burrow injury, or they can't figure it out, or Joe Burrow makes himself look like Justin Bieber? I don't know. But I feel like we've seen this before, and we've seen the Bengals get it right. I'm a little bit concerned about their defense, but I don't think with the amount of talent they have on that offense, T. Higgins, Chase, Joe Burrow.
Who's their running back?
Zach Moss is their running back.
Chase Brown's the running back, but they don't have
Zach Moss is their running back. I have him on my fantasy team, and he scored a touchdown this week. Be quiet.
He's the backup.
He's the starter. He's a starter.
He's not the starter.
Zach Moss is the starter.
Hold on. I got paperwork over here, dude. I'm pretty sure he's the backup.
I don't think it's time to blow it up. Not yet. If they go,
Chase Brown is RB1. I
don't know where you're getting this.
I'm getting it from ESPN.
Hang on a second. I got stuff over here. Hang on. Let me get it real quick. No, it's Zach Moss. It definitely is.
All right. Let's move on.
My guy just said yes. I'm correct.
Yeah. Let's move on from the Bengals here. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys. 1-2, big loss to New Orleans where they got absolutely throttled. And then last week the Cowboys lose to the Ravens, who were sort of like it was a must win for both of these teams. They tried to mount a comeback in the fourth quarter, but they did not look great in this game. Is it time for patience or panic with the Dallas Cowboys?
Patience. Have patience with the Dallas Cowboys. I still think that they have enough talent on that roster to win. Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. They will figure it out. They will start to win football games.
How about the Jacksonville Jaguars? 0-3. We just mentioned it might be time to acknowledge the fact that they overpaid Trevor Lawrence. And that Doug Peterson might be on the hot seat here in Jacksonville. 0-3 with an absolute shellacking loss to the Bills on Monday Night Football. Patience or panic with the 0-3 Jaguars?
Panic. Time to panic in Jacksonville. We got problems, and we can't figure out how to play offense on that football team. We don't even have that much talent.
Yeah, that's the problem. I don't know who any of their receivers are. Christian Kirk?
Yeah,
Brian Robinson or Brian? Is it Brian Robinson Jr.? Is that their
other? Yeah, the rookie.
I don't.
Travis
Jags
Etienne hasn't looked very good. He gave away the Miami game. Let's call it that. The game changed completely on his fumble.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
and
all right.
Trevor Lawrence, we'll say it again. Neither one of us think he's that good.
All right. Panic on the Jags. How about the San Francisco 49ers 1-2? We talked about the fact that I made it a point on the show that if they lost all of their injury-prone offense at one time, this is what they were going to look like. No Christian McCaffrey. Deebo Samuel may not play again this week, and I don't think they're going to have Kittle back. Patience or panic time in San Francisco.
Can I push on this one? Because I'm
Sure.
kind of on the fence with the San Francisco 49ers. I think you need to panic on one side because you've got injuries, and you've got injuries that are going to end your season if these guys don't get right. You cannot have CMC and Deebo out at the same time. Cannot happen. The only other guy on this roster that's more important is Brock Purdy.
Now,
at the same time, be patient because they're going to come back. But if they continue to get injured, which they've had injury histories in the past, especially CMC, you got problems.
In fairness, their backup running back has not looked bad. I'm trying to pull up his name.
Come on. CMC's best player in the NFL when he's on the field.
I agree, but Jordan Mason's got 324 yards, averaging 4.8 yards a carry. Listen, they drafted Ricky Pearsall for this specific situation. If Ayuk doesn't play well, Juwan Jennings stepped up. But if Deebo goes out, they've got Pearsall to put in. And Pearsall just got shot right before the season started.
Well, they paid him enough for him to buy a Rolex. They paid him enough for him to buy a Rolex, and he got shot for it.
Well, nevertheless, I think it's time to. We talked about the fact that the Niners window was closing. I think it's time that they, as much as I love Deebo Samuel, as much as I love George Kittle, I think it's time that they do what the Chargers did, and they let go of those longtime veterans on that offense to go get some young, healthy bodies that can hold up more than 3 weeks in a season. And then finally, the last patience or panic. Let's talk about the Miami Dolphins at 1-2. No Tua Tagovailoa. You mentioned it in your Homer's Corner. Should we place the blame on the GM and maybe even Mike McDaniels for not having a plan B as far as backup quarterback goes? Bill, is it time to panic on the Miami Dolphins?
I think so. I think it's panic time in Miami. I think that all the Dolphins fans that I talk to are. We don't know what's going on, and we don't have a quarterback. So you're not going to win. I think Emmanuel Acho came out and said it this morning and posted it maybe on X. He said, it doesn't matter how many weapons you have if you don't have a quarterback. Panic time.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, we have gotten to this part of the show where we talk some fantasy football in a segment we like to call Bullies, Buys, and Sells, and Bill's Factor Crap. We don't have the records on the screen, but we are both even at 14-10. Last week, the one that we had separated was Rashid Shaheed, where you crapped on it, and that was the only one that we did not agree on. And you got it right, I got it wrong. And so I went 5-3, you went 6-2.
Let's go.
So let's go ahead, and that puts us both at 14-10 on the season. So let's get into it. My quarterback buy goes to none other than Andy Dalton. He's only projected 17.1 points, but he's at home against the Bengals team that we both agreed the fact that the Bengals do not look great on defense. They're giving up the 19th most points to quarterbacks in fantasy football this weekend, this season. Sunday, 1:00 kickoff in Charlotte. Bill, what say you factor crap? Andy Dalton exceeds 17.1 points.
This is the most homer pick ever. Come on, man. We have one sample size from the Red Rifle, and you're going to go. You're killing me, Smalls.
17.1 is a low number for a quarterback.
I know it really is. I'm going to have to go fact on this one. Let's buy Andy Dalton this week. Let's say he scores more than that. I have a friend on Facebook that actually prayed to God on Sunday morning that they would score a touchdown, and Andy Dalton threw for 3. So
I'll tell you what, I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but last year I made a point on my Panthers show, The Cat Cave, that the Panthers made a mistake in signing Miles Sanders. And I continue to hold to that because Chuba Hubbard had over 100 yards rushing in that game, 55 yards receiving, and a receiving touchdown. Chuba Hubbard's a dude. And so it goes more to prove my point. That's not to say that he's my running back by this week because I'm buying Aaron Jones, which isn't really going off on a ledge outside of the fact that he's got a pretty high projection, 17.1 points, going up against the defense, giving up the 21st most points to running backs. But more importantly, he is going back to the team that he started his career with that we heard guys like Matthew Berry scream to free Aaron Jones, a revenge game for Aaron Jones at the Green Bay Packers. That's why I'm so bullish on Aaron Jones this week. Bill, what say you? Factor crap that he exceeds 17.1 points.
So do you think that they're going to focus on giving him the ball because it's his old team, or do you think they'll use him as a decoy?
I don't think they're going to focus on getting the ball. I think he's going to do the most with it every time he does get the ball.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to go with fact on that one. The only reason is because I don't think the Green Bay Packers are that good against the run. They gave up 36.7 points in week 1 at Philadelphia. That was Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
And then Indianapolis had a nice game against them, 15.5. I think that, or 19.5. I think that's Taylor, right? So
Donovan Taylor,
when they come up against good running backs, they don't do that well. Last week, Tennessee doesn't have anybody, and they only put up 15.9, which is still a decent amount. So I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
I think you might want to buy on him.
Tony Pollard had a disappearing act last week. All right, let's go to wide receivers, and this is out on a ledge because after week 1, he hasn't done much. And it's wide receiver Mike Evans projected 14.7 points this week. It's a home game against the Eagles. The Eagles, as you can see scrolling across the screen, are giving up the 5th most points to wide receivers in fantasy. Now, last week the offense struggled in Tampa Bay, and Chris Godwin was the recipient of most of the targets. I believe he's the one that caught a touchdown for the Bucs last week. Mike Evans is due. Dude has never gotten fewer than 1,000 yards receiving in his career. He's had a couple of bad games. I think he comes back this week. I think Mike Evans is due for a big game. So I'm taking the over on 14.7. Bill, what say you? Fact or crap exceeding this point total?
You know what? The Eagles are not good against the pass so far this season. And that's going to make it very interesting. I feel like that's low hanging fruit, Ryan, and I hate it. That's still not fair.
It's a pretty high projection.
He's at home too.
But he hasn't done anything in 2 weeks.
Yeah, you're right. So I'm gonna actually, to be honest, they've been really looking at Godwin in that offense. That's been is it Godwin?
Yeah, Chris Godwin.
Yeah,
that's right.
Marquise Godwin. Yeah, he's been the star this year. So I'm gonna say crap on this one. I don't think Mike Evans does that.
Shout out to Tyler who joined the stream. I don't know if he's still over on Instagram or not, but for our friend Tyler, big Michigan fan.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's still a Patriot. I think he's a Patriots fan. And nevertheless, shout out to Tyler. He's been in our Madden leagues and our college football leagues. I'm buying tight end Jake Ferguson of the Cowboys this week. Projected 10.7 fantasy points. They are at the New York Giants on Thursday Night Football. Thursday Night Football games are generally a low-scoring affair. But New York, middle of the road against tight ends in fantasy this season. Listen, the Cowboys got to get something going on offense. The fact that the game plan for the New York Giants is just to throw it out to Malik Neighbors might give the Cowboys some more opportunities, some more possessions on offense. That's why I'm taking the over. And 10.7 is not a huge number, but it is for tight ends. So give me all of Jake Ferguson this week, especially with guys like Sam Laporta who are dealing with injuries and haven't played well this year. Are out there. Bill, what say you? Jake Ferguson, buyer or factor crap exceeding 10.7.
I think this is crap, Ryan. I don't like this one. I don't mind you liking Jake Ferguson, but not this week. The Giants have been fairly stingy against the tight ends this year. Only one team put up more than 8.4 points. So I'm not feeling great about them. It's in New York, and I feel like the Giants have a pretty solid defense, and they're starting to figure it out a little bit on offense. So I think it's going to be a closer game and probably, like you said, low scoring. So don't feel great about Ferguson. Ferguson only had one good game, and that was last week. So we'll see if they get stopped this week.
I think all it takes for him is to fall into the end zone, and he breaks this.
Fall into the end zone.
And Volley Polly's agreeing with you on Jake Ferguson. Let's go to my sells, and I'm going to sell. We've talked ravingly about him today, but we also had a question about whether or not he's going to come back down to earth and pull what he does every year. So my sell that I'm doing this week goes to Sam Darnold. I know I'm buying his running back this week, but Sam Darnold's projected 19.9 points, and they're at the Green Bay. I can't spell because it says Greenback, Green Bay Packers. That's funny.
Is that like the money team, the Greenback Packers?
Greenbacks. Listen, you talked about them being decent against the pass. They're giving up the 11th fewest points to quarterbacks in fantasy this season are the Green Bay Packers. Sunday 1:00 kickoff in Green Bay. I'm selling Sam Darnold. Bill, what say you factor crap going under this 19.9 fantasy points?
Yeah, I like your analysis of it. I think it's a fact. I think Green Bay's defense is good, and that's a tough place to play, Lambeau Field. And Green Bay's a good team. And who knows? Are we going to get Jordan Love back this week? Because then that'll be a higher scoring affair probably than if Malik Willis is playing. So we'll see. But I think you're right. I think that's a fact. You should probably sell on Darnold this week. I just don't feel it, man. It's not there yet. It's not there yet. Give me a whole 8 games.
All right, let's go to running back here. I'm selling Joe Mixon. He's projected 17.3 fantasy points, but he got hurt last week. You talk about low-hanging fruit. I'm not sure if Joe Mixon plays this week. He's home against the Jags. They're giving up the 4th most points to running backs in fantasy this year. So a great matchup, but I think Joe Mixon is too banged up to have a great game. I'm selling Joe Mixon and his 17 points. Bill, what say you factor crap under on his 17 points?
This one's not fair, Ryan. You know how this works. I mean, I can't take him because I'll look like a tool if I say, BS, Ryan. Joe Mixon's much better than – I can't. Yeah, I'm going to go fact on that. So if he's hurt, sell him. We're done.
All right. Let's go to wide receiver. I'm selling Calvin Ridley, and I may be selling him the rest of the season. He's only projected 11.7 points, but he's at the Dolphins, who are giving up the 10th fewest points to wide receivers in fantasy, which is crazy to think about. It's a Monday Night Football, the 7:30 kickoff. I think we get another doubleheader of Monday Night Football this week, which makes no sense to me. But
come on, it's actually fun. It's actually fun. Think about it. You can, if you have 2 TVs, you can put both games on at the same time. Like, it's actually fun.
Or if you're like me and you go to open mics on Monday night, you don't get to watch football. And my Lions are playing this week on Monday Night Football. But I'm selling Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley was sit on my bench. He had one good week all season. Granted, we're only 3 weeks in, but I don't trust Calvin Ridley. And Volley probably comes in and says, plus Levis isn't good. I'm selling Calvin Ridley. Bill, what say you? Factor crap on the under 11.7 points.
Yeah, Miami's actually sneaky, got a decent defense, except for the fact that they were on the field for like the entire game against Seattle, and they finally gave up 24 points. They gave 17 points in the first quarter and then shut that team down. They'll get it right. Tennessee's not good on offense. Yeah, so I agree with you. I think it's a fact.
All right, Dallas Goedert had himself a day last week. I mean, he really basically single-handedly won that game for the Eagles, but I'm selling him this week. Projected 11.3 points. He's at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming off of a bad loss. And they are giving up the 4th fewest points to tight ends in fantasy this season. 1:00 kickoff in Tampa Bay. I'm selling this 11.3 points for Dallas Goedert. Bill, what say you? Factor crap under 11.3 points.
Yeah, I feel this one too. I think it's a fact that Tampa Bay just does not give up points to tight ends. Just doesn't. And it's not that they played bad tight end teams. They just don't allow it to happen. The defense doesn't allow it. So yeah, I'm gonna say you made a good call on this one, Ryan. I hate when you do that.
Yeah, listen. If you look at the picks that we made, you only crapped me on twice on 2 picks. So we'll see how well we do this.
Those will be the ones that are crap.
Yeah, we shall see. Listen, we're up against it. So let's run through podcast pick ems here in week 5 of the football season. If you're looking at the ticker across the bottom of the screen, Banker Bill didn't have a great week last week, but I didn't either. He went 2-3. I went 3-2. It puts Bill at, because we were tied going into last week. Bill is now at 9-11 on the season. I am 10-10. But we all know what happens when I start counting my chickens before they hatch. Let's get into some of these games. So we talked about most of the games that are on this list here. The number 19 Illinois Fighting Illini at number 9 Penn State, 18.5 points. I don't know if this line moved, but as of yesterday,
you're killing me with this one. This one's impossible.
Line was 18.5. I want to make sure that it's still 18.5. Of course, I can't find it now. 19. It moved up to 19, Bill. So I'll keep it at 18.5.
This one's impossible.
This is Saturday night, 7:30 kickoff on NBC at Beaver Stadium in University Park, Pennsylvania. Bill, who you got here? Illinois at Penn State.
The reality is Penn State hasn't played anyone. We don't know if they are who we thought they were.
Oh, normally
they
goes
played
with Penn
anyone.
State.
Huh?
It's how it always goes with Penn State. They're always really good until they play Michigan and Ohio State.
So we don't know. I mean, 19. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, give me a second. I just got to look at Illinois and see who they played. You know
I
what?
mean, they beat
Give
Nebraska
me
in overtime.
Oh my gosh, no, Penn State. You know what? Penn State's gonna blow them away. It's impossible to play in Penn State at night.
Give me Illinois to cover. I think Illinois
Okay.
might have a chance to actually upset Penn State. Then the biggest game of the season in college football features the number 2 Georgia Bulldogs going on the road at Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to take on the number 4 Alabama Crimson Tide. This is a Saturday kickoff at 7:30 on ABC. The Georgia Bulldogs were a 2-point favorite as of yesterday. Let's see if this line has moved. It has not. Georgia favored by 2 here. Bill, give me the Bulldogs, man. I don't know how else to say it, but Georgia just, I know they struggle with Kentucky, but I don't think that really matters all that much. Like they're due for one of those games every single year, and they're up to play the likes of Alabama. Give me Georgia, Bill. What say you? Georgia at Alabama.
Wrong again, Ryan. Alabama wins this game outright.
Man.
At home, at night, forget about it.
Georgia's also still pretty pissed off about last year when Alabama knocked them out of the playoff. I think Georgia's going to come out angry and hungry for this game. So yeah, all right. I'm glad that we picked against each other here. Let's go over to the NFL slate of games. The Dallas Cowboys are a 6-point road favorite at the New York Giants on Thursday Night Football. This game will be played on Amazon Prime Video. I'm making sure that line has not changed. It has not. 6 points, Bill. What say you, Cowboys at your dad's New York Giants?
I have a bad feeling about this one, Dad. It's not good. I think the Cowboys cover 6.
Yeah, I think you saw Dak Prescott after the game this past week say, if you want to get off, talking about the hype train. And now that they followed a 1-2, I think this is the week that the Cowboys come back up and the Giants fall back down to earth. Give me the Cowboys in this game as well. Let's go over to Sunday Night Football. This is another game that is a very intriguing matchup, considering that the team with the losing record is going to be the favorite in this game at home against an undefeated team that just blew out a team by 30 points last week. The Buffalo Bills are a 2-point dog on the road at the Baltimore Ravens. Give me every time I pick the Ravens, they lose. Except for last week. I picked the Ravens last week, and they, in fact, did beat the Cowboys. But it was only 1 point. They're at Baltimore. Yeah, give me the Ravens. The Ravens are notorious for getting the home cooking on their own field. Give me the Ravens with the upset. I say upset. They're favored in this game, but I still call it an upset to beat the Bills. Bill, what say you?
I do not think there's a hotter player in the NFL than Mr. Josh Allen. He is my fantasy quarterback, and I'm going to ride with him in this game. I think the Bills cover the 2. Well, they don't have to cover anything. They got points. I think the Bills win this game outright.
All right, the final game is a Monday Night Football showdown between the 3-0 Seattle Seahawks. We asked if they were pretenders or contenders earlier in the show. Taking on the Detroit Lions on the road. Monday Night Football. This is the 8:15 kickoff on ABC. Detroit, a 3.5-point home favorite. Bill, give me the Lions, man. Like, they haven't looked great. I'm not sure if Sam Laporta plays this week, but they found ways to win. Just outside of the game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're finding ways to win, and that's the sign of a good team. And I think they put it together this week, and they're able to knock off Seattle and knock Seattle from the land of the unbeaten. Bill, what say you? Seahawks at Lions on Monday Night Football.
I'll take the Lions on this one as well. I think they're a better team than the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks, like I said, I think they're pretending at the moment, and I don't think they can go in and beat the Lions by more than 4. Well, no. What would it be? The Lions. So the Lions would have to cover the 3rd. So yeah, I still think the Lions. I don't think the Seahawks have a shot at it being that close.
Yeah. All right, Bill. We're past time, and we started early tonight. Anything in overtime you want to talk about before we get off of here?
I really wish that the football gods would stop beating on me. I really wish that would happen. It's been a lot of years.
You're talking to a South Carolina fan.
Yeah, but you chose that. You chose that life. I did not choose. When I started rooting for the Dolphins, they were in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, because that was 50 years ago, old man.
Yeah, exactly. It was a long time. Exactly 40 years ago. Yeah. It was. So I was 7 or 8 years old. Dan Marino was their quarterback, and the first game I remember watching was the strike year in 1983. they lost to John Riggins and the Washington Redskins in the Super Bowl. And I remember crying. About that game. That's when I realized I was a Dolphins fan. That was 1983. So give me 41 years. And then they went to the Super Bowl with Marino, and then it's been mediocrity ever since.
I was -4 years old when that game took place. All right, guys. I just wanted to throw that last shot in, Bill.
I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody who joined. Some guys some folks that I haven't seen in a while over on Instagram giving us some love. Tyler came in, Matt Buck came in. Old guy I knew from middle school, Ryan Weaver, was in here for at least a second. Shout out to everybody who joined the show and was a part of the conversation. Trey Davis is in the chat before we sign off. I saw a guy wearing a Florida Gators hat at church tonight. I asked him about Napier. Very quickly told me he wanted him fired. So kind of goes back to Bill.
It's hard to be a Gator coach. You got to win.
If you want to find the show on social media, please go to facebook.com/tapouts and touchdowns. Give us a like, give us a follow. We're still on the road to get 1,000 followers on the Facebook page, on X at Tapouts and TDs. I've also got the socials back for the Carolina Panthers podcast that I do, the Cat Cave on X. And I'm probably going to be tweeting from there more on Sundays to sort of drive engagement during Panthers games. But as far as Tapouts and Touchdowns go, you can also follow us on YouTube at Tapouts and Touchdowns. And we are going live on Instagram every week now. I am at Ryan Frick Comedy over on Instagram. So please join us wherever it is that makes you the most comfortable. Thanks to everybody who's part of the show, everybody who joined the conversation, people that watch from a distance, lurkers, if you will. Appreciate everybody who was part of the show tonight. Come back next week. We're going to have more football talk. I actually, a big announcement that I probably should have left in overtime. We are going to be doing a cross promotion with this podcast. And if you remember before, we did a sort of a simulcast with us and the Whatever Face podcast with my buddy Corey Hollywood Reed. And we're going to do it again to discuss the Vince McMahon documentary that just launched on Netflix this week. I've already watched the first episode, and it's some pretty crazy stuff. So you want to tune back in to either this podcast or whatever Face podcast, because PJ Steven will be back to discuss the documentary. Holly will be back to discuss the documentary, as will I. So some actual wrestling content coming to Tap Outs and Touchdowns for the first time in a while. So stay tuned for all that and more football talk next week on the show. For Banker Bill, it's your guy, Bully Rye, and we'll see you next time right here on Tap Outs and Touchdowns.